Waiting. Here we go. We're going live. Hello, everyone.
Whew.
Welcome back. Listen, I've been doing this for a while, and my favorite part of this is the conversations as they unfold. And I'm even later today doing a little training for a community I'm part of called Grand Connection about panel moderation because someone caught wind of the fact that I do it a little different. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of panels just like every person answers every question, rinse, repeat. It's kind of boring. This is not that kind of show. So stick around, and here is our official introduction. What would you rather have? A bestseller screenshot or 3 conversations with ideal prospects? As an entrepreneurial author, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to always take those 3 conversations. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting your book to become an Amazon bestseller. I've done that 37 times across 4 books, 4 countries during the launch, and I don't even know, dozens of times since then. But though it does feel good and it gives you something to celebrate and share, it's not really about your business, right? If you wrote your book to grow your business, bestseller status shouldn't be the only way you measure success. I'd rather know that your launch reconnected you with a former colleague who now wants you to be introduced to a potential client, or someone on your launch team invited you to speak, or perhaps a reader reached out because your book helped them realize that you are exactly the person they need to hire. Those outcomes may never show up on the Amazon bestseller list, but they can have a much bigger impact for your business, which is why I encourage authors to think about what they actually want their book to accomplish before they launch, before they even write the book, honestly. Once you know the business outcomes you're working toward, you can build a launch strategy designed to create them. If you want help creating that launch strategy, generating reviews, creating a pipeline from your book to your business, schedule a complimentary 30-minute book launch brainstorming session at booklaunchbrainstorm.com. And now let's meet today's panelists. With me, I have Kim Groshek, who wrote many books, including Master How to Write a Tiny Book, written as a tiny book, one of my favorite subtitles, a short book that demonstrates its own approach while showing aspiring authors how to turn an idea into a focused, manageable for the reader book. Mitch Weisburgh wrote Mind Shifting, Stop Your Brain from Sabotaging Your Happiness and Success, a guide to recognizing the mental patterns that can get in our way and learn how to shift those patterns to improve happiness and success. Please join me in welcoming Kim and Mitch. Kim, I'm going to go over to you first. I always like to start these shows by getting a better sense of who you had in mind as you're writing this particular book. And as I mentioned in the intro, you have sort of a whole bunch of books. So I imagine each one is a slightly different focus. But for this book, who did you have in mind?
Yeah, so this is a second book. So I actually wrote a book called How to Write a Tiny Book. And then now this was actually for entrepreneurs because I was working with entrepreneurs. They wanted to write a book. They were struggling with that. And and I'm all about practice what you preach. I actually am a practical teacher. I teach people through my writing and my stories. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to flip this and actually show it while I was teaching it. So that's the reason why and who I actually wrote the book for.
I love the practical implication. I mean, I kind of got into that vein when I wrote my last book, Launch Your Book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews That Drive Revenue. I felt greater pressure than ever before to do the launch right because it was a practical book about the thing I was teaching. I love that. Mitch, how about you? Who did you have in mind? And it sounds like we were talking before this started. Mind shifting is part of a series of books.
Yep.
So
Yep.
who do you have in mind for the series?
Well, so I'm assuming that most of the listeners or watchers of this are people, right? So
Mostly.
as people, we have 5 basic modes of acting: fight, flight, freeze, doing things the way we've always done them, and doing what others expect of us. And whereas those responses could be useful, they also keep us stuck, especially when they take over automatically. And so really this series of books is for people who want to break out of that and access the most resourceful parts of the brain.
And when you started this series, were you already amongst other authors, or did you have to seek out that community?
No, I was actually more part of educators because when I started the books, I was already teaching 3 different courses, which is why the 3 different books. I was teaching these courses to educators, and I felt, you know something, my first thought was, if I have a book, then educators or decision makers are going to regard me as an expert. So let me have a book so I can say, oh yeah, I wrote the book on that. And then it was like, well, if I'm going to write a book, it really should teach people how to do these things. And so the book's expanded.
The credibility is definitely one of the top reasons I hear, because I also work with a lot of professional speakers, trainers, coaches, and decision makers are trying to figure out very quickly, without a lot of time, who to say yes to. And having a book connected to the work that you do, being the one who wrote a book on that topic, is a great feeling, but also a great way to be sort of identified amongst a larger list of people. Kim, your reasons for writing books has changed over time. I know you started also writing papers, and then they became books, and then you're like, this is how I teach. So you must have multiple projects going at once to produce at the level that you do. But what puts a topic on the list of, I'm going to write a book on this? Like, how do you decide? Because it's still effort, even though you've been through this so many times. It's still, I mean, you probably better than most of us, just how much this can take from the rest of your life. So how do you decide this warrants the attention that a book would take?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, I've gone through a transformation or transition myself, and the initially, as just to take everyone back to where I started, initially it was for me, really to get the book out, because I always wanted to when I was little, right? And I wanted to just write books, so I wrote children's books. But what has transpired, and I'll kind of tell you my journey a little bit so that you can see the choices and decisions you can make for why. Then it was, okay, well, there was a need out because I was working with executives. I was at the time a transformation consultant. I'd go into companies and do mergers and acquisitions. I also taught at the university part-time, so I did a lot of things. And it was my own company for 35 years. So I would, dive into anything. I could go do banks. I could do insurances. I was in manufacturing, education, you name it. I would be the one they'd call, right? And I would see these patterns, which I'm really good at identifying patterns. That's why I was so good at what I did. And I wrote a Win by Leading book. That was my first nonfiction. So moving out into this journey with you, talking with you about some of these things, because I've been with you for about 3 years now with these different campaigns. And it has evolved, standing in front of audiences and hearing what they want and need. That's where I started to speak about pausing, writing about pausing. And then now, today, it is really listening to the person that I identify. It's only one. So it's very, very powerful when you look at the one person, you talk to the one person, you ask them what they want, and you hear the words of what they need. And then that's what I write about now. And so it's just, and obviously as we talk further here, the reasons why I do it is different as well, but I'll save that for another conversation in this panel.
Yeah, this is really interesting because the initial, I've talked to so many panelists who say, I've known since I was 5 years old that I wanted to write a book. It's been a calling. It's just been in me. And at the time, maybe they didn't even know what they wanted to have the book be about. But this long journey, this fulfilling this deep desire and almost need to be an author. But once you've proven that to yourself, and Mitch, you did that, you proved that to yourself. Then you have to make it's a different calculus for book 2 and 3, or 32 and 33, or whatever. But it's a different calculus, particularly for those first 4 books. You're really, it's interesting because you're no longer proving to yourself you can write a book, people want to read. You have met certain criteria. So Mitch, I want to actually come back to you about how your sense of metrics of measurement, what success looks like, how those have shifted, and you're now in the process of working on a third in the series. So there's so many lessons, I imagine, things you wouldn't have known to ask about that are now you just know. How does that accumulate, and does it slow down the process because you want to be more exacting? Is it giving you more credit, more confidence because you know kind of what to expect? Like, how does all that new data about the process of writing a book feel for you now that you've been through it?
You know, so when I was writing the in the process of writing and in the process of publishing the first book, which is the mind shifting, stop your brain from sabotaging your happiness and success, I was figuring, you know something, I'll be satisfied if I only sell 10,000 copies. Ha, right? I think the book has been out for 2 years. I've probably sold closer to 1,000. Okay. But, over time, I realized that book sales weren't really the measure of success. My purpose is to change the way people think and act. Okay. For people to recognize that their brains are pushing them into automatic thought processes, automatic actions, but that they can seize control. And so the more people I reach, the greater my success. And so the book is part of that. And I've built a lot of ancillary things around the book in addition to the courses that I was already teaching. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And also, like when you first start a process like this, you don't have all that ancillary material. Like you're talking like
Right.
downloadable bonus content or checklists or things like that.
Right. So people could download a toolkit on how to have a difficult conversation. People can download a toolkit on, say, the three steps of going from fight and flight into curious and playful.
Mhm.
So there's toolkits, there's discussion guides. So even if somebody hasn't read any of the books, they could run a discussion on how do you open up others when you're having a conversation with them so they can have their whole team talk about that, again, whether or not they've read the books. And then there's there's book discussion guides. So if you were having a book club, for example, and you wanted to discuss any of the books, you could download a guide to lead a 45-minute to 2-hour discussion. Or if you wanted to have a book study group, you could download a discussion that takes it over, let's say, 2 chapters a week for 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay, wow. You've probably positioned yourself as having the most detail when it comes to those kinds of downloads. I want to talk about those last three options: the discussion guide for the team inside a company,
Hmm.
the book club discussion that would be like a one-time 45-minute to 2-hour book club discussion, and then a study guide if a group of people wanted to meet over a period of time. And
Right.
I love that you have a distinction across those three because really it's thinking about how could a reader use this in a group setting. And it's my favorite tip to give read to authors who are saying, I wish that my book sold more copies, to a company or to a group. I'm like, well, besides speaking, which, often you can include a bunch of books in a speaking contract. Besides that, having a tool that makes it useful for someone to buy your book and then get some more copies and try to create a
Mhm.
dialogue. I think it makes your book easier for people to access, to understand, and then it's more powerful. Kim, how have you thought about bonus content or how it leads people just generally from a book into the work you're doing? I know the work, it's like you and I are, we're both like creating content and leaving it behind and like keep building our futures. It's all part of the path and it makes sense in my mind, 2020 hindsight. But how do you think as you're building a book, like now, Master Tiny Book, are you looking to work with authors on that? Or is it just like, a lot of entrepreneurs and that's the struggle they're finding? Like how closely does it tie to a business?
Yeah, so, well, in my books, I do different things, right, based on the
Right.
objective that I'm trying to achieve. And in this case, I always have QR codes and such so they could actually get more product services from me. In this case, it is really a practical book for people to buy and use. And it isn't necessary. I mean, the goal for this specific book is you just go buy it and you can actually start, getting out of that gap, that stopping block where you're trying to write a book, right? And of course, the other book that people buy with this is actually The Decision That Closes, because they're struggling with the decision to write a book. So they learn how to. So there's kind of a link to that. They get it, and people just are buying it. This is just a whole different approach for this one. The other ones, as I have told you, is really companies call me in to teach a cohort, and the books are a part of it, or I come in to speak and they just buy my books as a big batch. And that's always the philosophy that I've led by. Not to say that I don't do the other. It's not, and it is an opportunity for people to get a glimpse of reading one or two chapters if they have not heard of me, where they do get to, when I stand on stage, right, they get to get a copy of a chapter or two so they can read it and see, oh, I see what this is. This kind of makes sense. My approach isn't very detailed like that, because for a reason. It's very strategic, right? So the book stands on its own. This one particularly stands on its own. And if a person wants to write a book, especially a tiny book, you can buy it, read it, and go step by step through the journey of the book and actually get a tiny book written.
I can imagine that it's almost like became, I imagine the number of questions, like a prolific author, you get more and more questions. I mean, it happened to me by book 3. So I can't even imagine like the multitude of books that you've had, what that, like the clamoring of other people, like, how did you do that? How do you do that? How do you do this? How do you do that? Like,
Oh yeah.
And in some ways, like writing books about your craft, even if it's not something you're selling, it helps people, but it also preserves your time on your calendar. Because like I years ago did a master class on, should I start a podcast, because I was an early podcast host, and not the earliest, but it was like 2015. I had a show, and people started asking me about that, and rather than meet with every single person for an hour to diagnose whether they should or shouldn't, I just did a training, and then I just made it available for free.
Right.
And people would email me, and I'd say, oh, well, check this out, and if you still have some questions, like email me, and maybe we'll hop on a call. But yeah, I feel like you must get that kind of inquiry all the time, but you also want to be
Yes.
helpful.
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me is time management, and I do get a lot of people wanting to book calls with me or get to me. And so I want my knowledge in these books, so you can, a lot of times a person will meet with me for 15 minutes. I only carve my time for 15 minutes, and at certain times during the day. It's very specific. And when I find out, oh, this is what this person really could get benefit from, I will offer them, go check out my scam book, or go check out the How to Write Your Book, tiny book, or go check out, this book. It's only one though. Like, I don't say, go find 77 books out there, right? It is, okay, this is the book that they need. Go, and here's the
You're a
link. You can go buy it.
concierge.
Yeah. Kind of.
You're a little
Yeah.
concierge. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, quick diagnosis. Let me
Yep.
understand a little more about it. And like,
Yes.
here is the book I'm going to give you, which by the way is way more helpful to a person than to be like, here's 42 books, or here's
Exactly.
42 tactics, or 42 suggestions. I want you to share with us in the private messages here. You have a page on your website that I came across by accident,
Oh,
which has all your books with a little like, if you're this, if you're this, read these books. That sort of help people,
yep.
like without talking to you, identify what book might be helpful. I want to include that in the show notes, because I just
Sure.
think, man, like that's really helpful. And I only have 4 books, but I do think like having that clarity of the reader's perspective or the website user's perspective is just such a big piece of it. Mitch, I'm going to come back to you about how your understanding of your reader may have changed from book 1, because your book 1, you knew what you knew. Now you're out there interacting with people around books. Did that affect book 2? And is it going to be affecting book 3, who the reader is going to be?
Oh, a little bit. And I want to go back to a little bit of what Kim was saying, because a lot of what she seemed to be writing about are, this is how you accomplish this goal. And so to a certain extent, it's skills, right? And so if you wanted to write a tiny book, you could buy How to Write a Tiny Book, and you'd get like the things to do, and you could follow that from the book. The things that are in the mind shifting books, you can't learn them from a book. And that's that, it's in one sense, it's kind of unfortunate because, you read the book and if you read the book once, you get familiar with all the different things that you can do. But it's just like, right. You can't learn how to ride a bicycle by reading a book. You have to do it. And so as I was writing the book, it's like, well, this is what people have to learn, but they're not going to get this just by reading the book. What I found is that there are people who have read the book, let's say 3 times. And one person was saying, this is a woman who, she suffers from anxiety to the extent that she's hospitalized sometimes for 2 weeks at a time. She read the book 3 times, the Stop Your Brain book. And she said, after reading the book, first of all, I now am understanding what my therapists are telling me. I really didn't understand what they were saying. Second, now I can recognize when I start to go off. And sometimes I can use some of the things from the book to pull myself back. But if I can't do that, I can talk to a therapist early enough so I'm not hospitalized. Okay. But that's from reading the book like 3 times. And so, in coming up with all these other things associated with the book, it's like, how do I give people the experience of being able to practice? Because putting exercises at the end of a chapter, who reads those? I mean, I might read them, but I never do them in a book, right? So it's these downloads and these tools that I have in the website. It's the 5 session, what I call a practice lab on the book. I have a download so you could run those with your own group and your own organization. But twice a year for each one of the books, I run one myself. And so for 4 weeks, we talk about, 2 of the chapters in one of the book and how that applies specifically to your organization. So does that
Yeah.
again, like, I don't know. I could have gone off on a tangent. So I don't
No,
know.
no, I love it. You guys know I'm looking for juicy little bits that I can pounce on. This is great. I think usability is going to change. I mean, Kim talked a lot about purpose, and that's going to change from book to book. And this is where it's wonderful to be around other authors, but you need to be around multiple other authors. If you meet one person who has experience and they tell you this is what you need to do, you need to go meet more people. Like, that is one person's opinion about what you need to do. You need to see enough variety of what's possible to start to identify what you want your book to do for you in that moment, and maybe for you and your business in that moment. But the reason for writing the book, the purpose, has to have clarity, and it's going to change from book to book, and that's totally fine. And then the other piece is usability of that book. And in Kim's case for that book, and my book, Launch Your Book, is very like, follow these steps.
Mhm.
Now there's philosophy, there's a little bit of the why, because I have to sometimes, I mean, you can give people steps, but if you don't educate them about the reason for the steps, they're not going to do them. So you got to start with, hey, let me explain kind of what you've been doing, why it hasn't really been working for you, and another approach. And let me now give you all the steps to try that approach on your own. And then you could judge for yourself whether that made a difference.
Yep.
But you're talking, Mitch, about a whole different level of involvement where discussion, self-awareness, like being able to interpret the advice others are giving you. I mean, what a profound piece of feedback from a reader that your book helps that person stay out of the hospital as frequently, and had a better understanding of what their therapist and other helping professionals was telling them. I mean, what does that feel like? Like, you went out of your way to write a book, and that was one of the things you got to hear about your book. Like, it must be
It's
great.
it's incredibly gratifying. And I mean, a very different example, if you want, a woman with 2 teenage daughters. And now I'm sure none of us have had this experience where we're fighting with our teenagers, right? Because for most of us, the teenagers, they do what we tell them, right? But somehow or other, her two teenage daughters were fighting with them, and we talked about different modes of communication in the book. And she's reading the book, and she started to try it with the teenager, like asking them open-ended questions and listening with curiosity rather than listening so that she could pounce. And she says, she was saying, I tried this, and we had our first fun conversations in over a year. And it's just like, that's what I'm trying to do, is to allow people to pull the things that they already have, those skills inside of them, but they can't necessarily access them in the moment. So it's giving people the ability to access their own skills, their own resourcefulness in the moment where they most need them.
I often say leadership books are parenting books, and parenting books are leadership books.
Right.
I get a lot of practice on
Mhm.
how to be more patient.
Right. Right.
My team benefits from all the
Well,
practice
that's
I've
what
made at
marriage
home.
teaches you, right?
I'd love to hear other feedback, Kim, that because the range of books you've written, the kind of feedback. It's not always like I always focus on reviews because that's the currency that I care about. But besides, a written review on Amazon, which is lovely, like incredible, long-lasting social proof. But often you just get these like anecdotes shared with you via email or just through a conversation. So what are some of the things as a content creator, as a book prolific author, like what have you been hearing from the books you've created?
Well, I hear a very powerful, different way from people. It is about the content in the books. They actually read my books. It's not about the cover. It's not about getting a review. The last book that I wrote, I had beta readers, and in that conversation, which was a large group, every single person got a shift and a change and a
Mhm.
transformation in their life through in a different way, and they told me their stories. And so that is really the power, and that's what I'm trying to really. It really isn't about the marketing. I mean, it's happening, and I learn a lot from you when we go through processes. And I say, okay, I'm going to take a little nugget like you're saying, because I am an architect, right? I'm a strategic architect, similar to you, and I work with people that and help them create curriculum similar to what Mitch is designing. I teach them, hey, people only have a 5-minute time span here to listen to an audio or read a clip or do some curriculum, do some work, right? And so I teach a more of a three-dimensional way of building in their books or whatever that their concept they're trying to get to the world. But I personally don't do it. Right. I don't need to because in my books it's about the power of what I've learned in life, and I walk through the experience as I write, right? So that I'm doing the research, I'm transforming myself. I'm practicing as I write the book. So that's why you might see two different books. One is one and the other, because I learn more now this time. Mastering it is different than writing one that I have the other book, right? So um
How often do you go back
the
and read your earlier books?
um I don't it's not about me reading my
No,
books.
I'm just so
I'm getting
curious.
I
No, I give out because I recommend my books all the time, like my older books, right?
Mhm.
And it's
Yep.
stuff I wrote a long time ago. I mean, I have a book in
Yep.
2017, 21.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and then like my first book is about networking at conferences, and I'm starting to go to more
Mhm.
conferences. So I made the joke, maybe I should read it as a refresher. And I realized I haven't read that book
Oh.
since I wrote it. Like, I don't think I've gone back and read it. And I'm really removed. At the time, I was speaking on the topic all the time. I was doing all these talks. So the content was really fresh in my mind. And now I'm a little away from it. And it has been a whole pandemic since I've really gone to I'm like, people tell me this is a really helpful book. I wonder what it would be like for me to read it. But
Right.
then I'm like, I probably have all these things I'd want to add, and I'm not ready to do like,
Well,
the second version. That's
so
what
that's
happened.
why, right? That's why I write a second one. So it's,
Yes.
then, okay, so how often do I write? I read it. Well, I'll read the first one that I'm building off of as a
Yeah.
baseline. But, I don't find myself having to go back and read something I've written just to go read something I've written, other than my fiction novel that I'm writing my second fiction novel now, my big one, 28 chapter big one, right? And
Wow.
I need to make sure my characters are being developed throughout the next volume, right? The next one. So I have to be real clear on that. So I guess that's the only reason why I do. Or if I'm writing curriculum, I'll go back to the chapter I'm writing curriculum to, right?
Mhm.
To make sure that I'm
Matching
aligning the
it.
curriculum with what's
Yeah.
in there. So,
Yeah. No, it was just a question that struck me because I'm like,
yeah.
in the way it's in my rearview mirror, right? Like I did a thing, I put it out in the world. I'm glad other people are interacting with it. I can still
Yeah.
speak to it, but I'm speaking to it from like my head, like what I remember of that. And sometimes people like come back to me and say exact phrasing, and I'm like, yeah, yes, that is what you're right. That I did say that.
Well,
Like I'm like, oh,
that's good.
I,
And I think
great.
there's a volume 2 in your review, but that's an amazing book, by the way. I mean, I have that. I have followed the steps on that, and I go back every time when I'm relaunching a book, and I
Mhm.
learn the steps through that process. I mean, because you are very strategic and very detailed when you explain it, so that when I'm reading it, it's easy for me to follow. I don't have to call Robbie and say, Robbie, how do I do this? Because the book itself tells you that. And that's the approach that I try to take, because I understand that
Yep.
when I'm talking to only the one person, which many people say, oh, I got to talk to all the people in the world. If you talk to one person, not talk to, but it is trying to get an understanding of the psychographics of that person, right? And then understanding how do they learn. So then I am talking to the one person that is the one person that learns that way. It isn't 5 people that learn that way.
Right. I want to address something because you just brought this up. Like you followed my books, my book,
Mhm.
Launch Your Book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews that Drive Revenue to Launch Your Book. And Mitch, I'm guessing you've referenced it with your books as well. And now the one of you are clients of mine. And yet people hesitate. I'm bringing this up because I think people hesitate to put too much, quote unquote, in a book. And for me, it is more valuable the way I'm doing it. For me, this is
Yep.
why I like this, because
Mhm.
Kim, you're one of my best referral partners. Like
Yeah, I
you're out
know.
in the world. When someone mentions book in front of you, you're like, oh, do you know Robbie? Oh,
Yep.
here's the
Right.
book. Do you want to
Exactly.
meet him? Here's an introduction. Like I don't have to be everywhere all at once. The word of mouth's working for me because you have been able to interact with the material on your own. And for the right person, having me design and execute the plan is the perfect solution. But it's not the solution for everybody. And it's an expensive solution. It's a time-consuming project the way I'm doing it. So I can't find the right clients without the help of all the people who already understand what's possible. And so I'm educating people. It's a little bit like what's happening with you too, Mitch. It's like you got to educate people
Yep.
about the possibility of change, about a different outcome, and then they will start to seek how to do it and start to do the practice of it. Mitch, what's your timeline for these 3 books to be released? I'm curious about how you like sequenced them and thought about like the pacing because each one deserves its own attention, both to be created and then launched. But you also have to keep up momentum and not burn yourself out because 3 books for most
Wait a
of
minute.
us
Did you
is a
say
lot.
not burn myself out?
Yes, that's the
When did
hope.
that enter the equation? I thought that was the whole purpose, to burn yourself
Oh,
out,
okay. So
right?
how's it going?
I sometimes I feel burned out, right?
Mm,
So just in terms of the pacing, it the rough draft basically takes me about 5 months, and it would take longer, except I'm already teaching these as courses, so probably 50% of them, 50% of the content or 60% of the content is there already. I was figuring that I would do one a year, but then I got distracted for a couple other projects before the third book. But the first book came out in 2024, the end of 2024. The second book came out the end of 2025. The third book, which is on resilience, uh, probably will come out in February or March of 2027.
that's not too far off the mark then.
So it's 3 or 4
Wow.
months off the mark, right?
Yeah, that's a really dedicated pace because I know that every time I'm writing a book, it's very hard to do much of anything else for a few months. Like between like during the early writing, I can do maybe some other things, but like those last like stint of the effort to get it all pulled together and tied up in a
Hmm.
little bow, which overlaps the launch process. I mean, there's a dedicated amount of time in that.
Yeah.
Um, but sticking with it, I mean, that's your own resilience showing. I know that burnout. I'm glad you are saying the truth about this because it is a lot, and which is why I'm curious about the team you have with you. Like, what kind of support do you have in place? Do you have other people taking on other parts of other things you had going on your to-do list? Like, how do you manage and maintain all the spinning plates?
So in terms of the book, I deliberately allocate 1.5 to 2 hour chunks of time to either writing or editing. And I know that in order to keep up momentum, I have to do that at least 3 times during a week. But a week is not 5 days; a week is 7 days. So I can take a Friday and do it on a Saturday. Uh, the other things that I do, first of all, I find AI incredibly useful, not as a writer, but as a researcher. So I have deep reflections from all the people that I have taught for the last 8 years. And whereas I would never use their exact story and I would never ever use their names, I can go back and say, you know something, I need examples of where people have said that they've used visualization in order to motivate themselves. Go through the past courses and see what people have said that they've used it and where it's been
Amazing.
successful and not. And then I can pull those out. So I can use the book as a researcher, and then I can also use the book and say, I'm thinking of saying this, but I'm not satisfied that um, it's pointed enough. What are 3 different ways that this could be reworded? And so it's kind of like giving me different options. So I'm using AI a lot, and then I'm working with really 2 people in terms of marketing the broader things to do with mind shifting, and I have 3 other people who can teach the course.
So you created bandwidth
Yep. Yep.
for yourself, and you really have to plan for that. Like, people don't realize until they're already thick in the weeds, like, just how much it can take from you to do a full length book and everything around it, like, to do it properly. I'd love to hear from you, Mitch, and then Kim, about the Kindle flash sale. So the reason we're all here is that we connected through one of the recent Kindle flash sales that I organize 3 times a year.
Hmm.
Dozens of entrepreneurial authors come together, lower their Kindle book price to 99 cents or maybe $1.99 if the size of the file is bigger, and we all cross promote. Love, Mitch. You've been through this now. What was sort of your expectation of what it was going to be like? What was it like? And how does it fit with the helping you market the book?
So, so I think that every time there's a Kindle flash sale, I think I end up selling between 20 and 40 books just just through the sale. And again, as you say, it's 99 cents. So and you get 35% of that. So
You're
I've been
rich.
able to buy 3 Mercedes just on those 60, 120 sales that I've made. So you don't get wealthy, but if your goal is to use the book for other purposes, what you're doing is you're spreading the book. So that's A. B, uh, reading the books of other people who are doing the Kindle flash sale has been very valuable. And also, it's not, you don't make a swap, but in reading their books, you tend to write reviews of their books and they tend to write reviews of your books. And then both as part of the Kindle flash sale and afterwards, you get relationships with these other people who are authors, and you may end up doing podcasts or speaking or joint articles with other authors because their topics touch on yours and they're complementary. So I would say, I mean, for that alone, it's been more than worth it. And um, and getting the wisdom from you, Robbie, during the Kindle flash sale, it's like you bring something up and there you are. It's like, and here's how I would handle it or something like that. Um, so those Kindle flash sales have been invaluable. So thank you for putting them on.
Absolutely. And for those who are listening, you can always go to kindleflashsale.com. If we're not actively accepting new authors for an upcoming campaign, there will always be a waitlist button. So you can go join the waitlist, and then you'll find out before the rest of the public when those next campaigns happen. Kim, you've been with you've been with me for years now, bringing up different books each time. And you're such an active participant. I really appreciate it. You have so much to offer a community of authors, based on your experience. What has it been like on your side of things as far as the outcomes that you see from being part of the Kindle flash sale?
I would just say everything that Mitch said. I don't really have much else to add. I think he pretty much summed it up for you. So, yeah, I just participate to relaunch my books because I have 77 of them, and I like to focus on campaigns in my business. And so I pick one book and then I build it all into the cohorts that I teach in the businesses, the things I speak about, the things I talk about, or I repurpose my podcast, different episodes based on the book. And then there's a lot of relaunching all over the place. I have an influencer, if you talk about teams, right? I have an influencer that distributes everything on 15 different platforms. She has a big following, as well as my platforms, and she handles all that stuff so I don't have to. So for me, I'm very streamlined in what I do. So it's very important to focus on, one, like when you have these 3 times a year, one book to relaunch, even though I'm doing other projects in parallel. And because I'm such a good time management person where I actually carve out and focus only on the one thing that I'm focusing on at the time, shut everything else down, right? Don't have the emails open or whatever. Because as I had mentioned, I'm writing a fiction novel that takes me I'm on my second book. It's on 3 years of drafts. That one takes much longer to write because in fiction, because that's not included in the flash sale, right? It's only nonfiction books. But with fiction, you have to show them, not tell them, and come from where you are, where they are, the characters, and understand the characters, psychographics. Again, it's all about the person that you're writing. So the relaunch in your Kindle flash sale is important to me because then I can be accountable to that timing that you set. And it's, again, time management. It helps me really build my campaigns and very focused so I'm not all over the place and the audience knows where I am, right?
It's almost like I had you in mind when I came up with the idea. I didn't at the time, but you are such a great example of taking that to heart. Because I say to people, listen, like whether you wrote a book 8 years ago or 8 months ago or 8 weeks ago, your book came out, like you want to make sure you constantly have a reason to bring it back up, but you don't want to talk about it every day because you've got other things going on. So how do you refocus on the book? It's like people will reach out to me about doing relaunches, and I'm like, well, it kind of depends on what you're trying to achieve. Here's a really small effort that could yield some really positive results, because if you don't just sign up, but like if you say, okay, Robbie says, make a list of 25 to 50 people and reach out to them in the few weeks before the campaign starts and ask for a review and re-engage. Well, that alone is like the exact work a business owner should do. Like 3 times a year, reach out to 25 people. I mean, it's not like the high bar, but like most people aren't really doing even that on a regular basis. Reminding newer people on your list that you have a book maybe you haven't talked about in such a long time and they don't even know. Like it's a really, it helps me like go, okay, I have to like refocus and re-talk about all of this. So yeah, thank you for taking that to heart, because I almost see this as a marketing campaign, like a broad marketing campaign, not just about a book. And I love that we're teaching entrepreneurs like how to make use of that. Closing thoughts from each of you. Any, Kim, quick like advice for an author writing a book to help them grow their business? What was a quick takeaway you've got?
Well, if you want to write a tiny book and you ever wanted to write one, here it is.
Yeah.
Buy the book, Master How to Write a Tiny Book, because you'll get it done a lot faster than, Mitch is doing the traditional process and that takes longer to do. The tiny book is not, it's actually streamlined and you can get your book written within 3 months.
Nice. Mitch, what about you? Any advice?
I would say that if you're interested in creating a book for a broader purpose, then you should really contact you, Robbie, because you will ask people the questions to get them to understand how the book fits into the larger story, and it's understanding that and then doing the things that you need to do to expand that story and fit the book into it that's going to make you a success.
Mitch, I didn't even pay you for that. That was lovely. And by the way, folks can go to authorroilab.com which is the small group program I created to help do exactly what Mitch described, which is people will figure out whether the book they're working on, is it the right book for their business? Because too many of us like don't stop to ask that question for book, particularly for book one. We don't really know that even ask that question. Mitch, how can people find you and follow your work?
The easiest way is mindshiftingwithmitch.org. And so you could sign up for the newsletter there. You could take a look at the newsletter and see if it's worth signing up for. You could find the downloads there. You could book a time with me from that website, mindshiftingwithmitch.org.
Fantastic. And how about you, Kim?
Just find my name, kimgroshek.com, all one word, KIMGROSHEK.com. Everything is out there. There's a library of books. There's a Let's Talk option where you can actually meet with me for 15 minutes. Anything. Feel free to go out there. And thanks so much, Robbie, for having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to put all the links in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. You'll find all the information for this episode, as well as all the archived episodes, and there are hundreds to go through. Some really excellent author panel discussions, one-on-one conversations with experts, and one-on-one conversations with successful authors. We have the curated directory of experts who will guide entrepreneurs through their author journey, writing, editing, publishing, launching, and marketing. We have free virtual networking events every month, a nascent blog we're getting started, and of course the Kindle flash sales. Check all that out and more at bizbookpubhub.com. Panel, thank you again so much for this conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Robbie. Kim, great to meet you.